Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the LFC Transfer Room. I'm Jack, joined today by Tino, Declan, and Anthony, talking about some general transfer news. A day after Darwin Day, it's been a pretty exciting time in the transfer realm for Liverpool. But before we kind of get into things, Tino, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. I'm off work all this week, so it's been nice to just enjoy the entirety of what has been a very, very busy transfer week for Liverpool Football Club. So it's been quite nice just to sit and watch everything come in. It's been a nice week. It's been good. I'm looking forward to this debate.
And Declan, yourself, how are you?
I'm all good. Darwin Day yesterday was exciting, wasn't it? I thought we weren't going to get the announcement, and 7 o'clock comes around and it just popped up out of nowhere. It was great. Yeah.
Anthony, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I went to the England match yesterday at the Molineux. Obviously, it is in Wolves, and I got to witness that great result and got to see a future Liverpool star in the making in Jude Bellingham. So, yeah, I'm doing very well.
Nice to see you, Jen, in the chat. I see you have an updated profile photo, which is the newest member. Before we kind of get into the Liverpool side of things, I'm an American, so I'll see you guys in the group stages of the World Cup. Will I see Southgate? Should I see Southgate on the touchline for you guys?
Honestly, I don't care.
I imagine there's a bit of apathy. Like, I don't really care because it's,
Yeah, I think at this point, there's no point from the England perspective of changing managers to then go into a World Cup with a brand new manager, a brand new fresh start, because they haven't got a lot of time to change to how that manager wants to play, whoever they do get in. I think it'd make more sense to have Southgate do this World Cup and then that's it, it's done. It'd make no sense continuity-wise to change it so late on.
Declan,
yeah,
Anthony.
I agree. I think he'll stay. We've only got one more game now before the World Cup starts, so it wouldn't make practical sense to bring a new manager in and try and implement a new philosophy. But like yesterday was just a shambles watching it. The defending some of it, and even like the Stone sending off, it's just comical, a whole lot of it.
Anthony, I mean, you were there to see it in person. Does that change your perception at all?
I mean, I don't really keep up to date with international football. I thought it'd just be a nice day out. So, yeah, I'm not really too fussed about it.
Well, a guy who I think did feature in that match, Jude Bellingham, is the first topic of discussion in today's stream. Rumors are that Real Madrid are interested in making a move for him. What a midfield that would make up for them. Camavinga, their new signing Chouameni, Bellingham. They still have Valverde, who got the assist in the Champions League final against Liverpool. That would be a nasty midfield. I guess we'll start from the Madrid side of things. For you, Tino, can you see Madrid making a move for him, or does it almost seem like they have an embarrassment of riches in that area of the pitch?
This summer, no. At some point in the future, yes. He's such an incredibly talented young player that is bound to be on the watch list of Madrid and Liverpool and Man City and other big teams in Europe right now. He's a phenomenal midfielder. He's got a lot in his locker that Liverpool don't have. And if I'm honest, I think he does have a certain carefree attitude to his game, or at least he plays in that way, whilst also doing the very dirty work and the graft as well, that I don't think Madrid will have once Modric potentially retires, Kris is getting older. But they don't need him. They really don't need him. We've mentioned, as you already, like a couple of the players, Freddy Valverde, Chouameni, who they've just signed from under our noses, and Eduardo Camavinga from the French league. And it's just, they don't need him right now. Liverpool need him more, in my opinion, which makes me feel like we'll go absolutely gung-ho, absolutely ham to really make sure we get him next summer. You look at what he's done in the last season at Dortmund, and you look at his stats: 44 appearances in all competitions, 6 goals, 14 assists. which is a phenomenal output. And admittedly, when players come to the Premier League or go to different leagues, there's a certain tax on there for players, particularly if they come to the Premier League. And we've seen it a couple of times with players coming into how physical it is and not really performing to the level we expect them to. But he's a lad who's grown up in this system, in the English FA at Birmingham, and you'd expect him that not really to be an issue. He's very dominant, very assertive. As well, he's got the third highest tackle duels won in the league last season, which really shows not only is he very good going forward, but he's also not afraid to get stuck in, which is exactly what we need. I don't think Madrid need that at this moment in time. I think they've got a number of different players who already fit that mold to a certain extent. Maybe in a couple of years or so when they lose a lot of the older players, but at the moment I think it'd just be a waste, and I don't think it's the right move for him and his career at this moment in time.
Yeah, and Declan, Tino mentioned at the back end there for him, for Bellingham. Also, Jen, thank you very much for the £2.5. For you, Declan, if you're Jude Bellingham and you're surveying the options, Liverpool and Madrid as the two biggest frontrunners at the moment, you could have a few other English sides in there as well. What, I guess, if you're in Jude Bellingham's camp, what are you putting in his ear about advice?
It's tough because there's like the clubs offer different things. So you could go to Man City for, the money's obviously a lot bigger at Man City than if he comes here. But I feel like the product of playing for Liverpool for a player, like, it's one of the best experiences you can have as a player. Loads of people say about Anfield, about playing, going to big stadiums, playing big games, because that's what it's about. And I don't feel like in the Spanish league, even though you've got the likes of Atletico, Barcelona, and you can play in big games there, I don't feel like week to week it's as intense as the Premier League is. So I feel like if you're Jude Bellingham, you want to come home and enjoy the Premier League week in, week out, and the intensity. And, people want to be in those title battles between City and Liverpool at the minute because everyone's just gripped onto the situation every week, which is going to change. And I think as a player, that's a really exciting prospect.
And Anthony, for you, Luis Diaz in the winter wasn't supposed to be signed, but because Tottenham began to make a move for him, it kind of got Liverpool's rear in gear, and they moved for him. Could a similar thing happen here? Obviously, it's probably almost double the price it would be for Diaz, but could almost other interest spark Liverpool's move for you, at least, Anthony?
I mean, I think we all hope so, but it's probably not likely. I don't think Madrid are going to sign two huge name midfielders in the same window. Obviously, they already robbed too many of us and beat us in the Champions League final, so they need to leave us alone with Jude Bellingham. But it'll be just horrible anyway. Real Madrid, they like Sebastian was saying, they don't need Bellingham. They've already got too many. Camavinga, Modric, guys still performing at world class level at 37, 38 years old. They've got Kris and Valverde. But yeah, but we definitely need a midfielder, and definitely he should be top of our list. I don't think we can afford to wait till next season. We saw it this season. The midfield is just not good enough when either Thiago's not there or Navigator's not there. So we need one, and we need one quick. But yeah, let's hope that we can make a move for Bellingham this summer.
And if it's not this summer for you, Anthony, so you said we need a midfielder, and I totally agree. But if you have to say, all right, we'll get our guy Bellingham, but it'll be next summer, but you get no one this summer. So you have next year, which would be kind of a bit lighter in the midfield. Are you taking that trade-off, considering you'd get the perfect guy in 12 months' time?
Oh, it depends. Because the only thing is, there's not many alternatives out there to Bellingham at the moment, and the issue is we just need one. I don't know why we have to wait till next summer. I know they sold Haaland, but that's got nothing to do with us. That's their own fault. They shouldn't have sold him then. If the player's available, just get him. We saw it with Diaz, how much of an impact the player can make in such a short amount of time. We were looking a bit like we weren't scoring as frequently in front of goal. The defensive options weren't there, and then he comes in and we're scoring for fun again. But I think Bellingham could do the same thing.
Declan, I'll pose the same question to you. If it's Bellingham next summer, nobody this summer, are you taking that trade-off?
Be interesting to see if we did take that sort of trade-off like we did with Keita, and we're anticipating waiting a year, because I feel like we could make a lot of excuses during the season, like it's going to be fine, Bellingham's going to come. I don't feel like we can just sit still. I feel like the fact that we went in for Sadio Mane at the start of the summer just indicates where our position is at the minute. I feel like we might have to go gung-ho because maybe next year there might be another player in the mix, and when it's between 2 clubs or 3 clubs, it makes a big difference.
Indeed. And Tino, for you, what's your optimism level on him actually joining Liverpool? Because it's always been tossed around for years now, but it's going to be a tough one no matter when the signing's made. If you had to put a percentage on it, what are you putting?
I'm very skeptical that we'll actually sign him, if I'm being perfectly honest. As much as I really want it to happen, whether it's this summer, next summer, or the season after, I'm very skeptical that we'll actually sign him. I'm like less than 50% in terms of certainty that he'll be a Liverpool player at some point in the future. He's such a talented lad that I'm concerned that we'll wait till next summer or wait till the summer after or whenever it is the club think about moving in for him. And then we're like, but we haven't sold 1 or 2 players. We haven't got the right capital to make this deal work for us. So we'll move on to the next target, or we'll look at someone else. Or that's the one thing I'm slightly concerned about with the manner in which we do our business. That being said, I think he's the right guy. I think he's someone we certainly should be targeting this summer. And I would really make that trade-off. If you were to say to me now, we'd get him guaranteed next season, I'd be like, fair enough. We've made a world-class top quality signing this summer already in Darwin Nunez. I'm happy if we don't sign anybody else, relatively speaking, as long as you guarantee me we sign Jude Bellingham or at least another midfielder of his quality next summer. If you look at the way he plays as well, and the way he could interact with Trent and now Darwin Nunez, you look at nobody in the Bundesliga, nobody at Borussia Dortmund last season was fouled more than him. So if you're looking at Trent and set pieces and now bringing Darwin Nunez into the mix, having a player like this season or next season could really up our game and really help when we're playing against those teams who sit back, sit deep, defend. And we brought in Thiago to try and solve that problem, and it has helped to a certain extent. But to have another string to our bow in someone like Jude Bellingham would really put us on that next level.
It would indeed. Let's pause on the incoming discussion for a little bit, and we'll come back to that later on in the stream. But let's talk about some of the outgoings. The most prominent, obviously, is the number 10, Sadio Mane. His links to Bayern Munich continuing to persist. Most recent things that he has reached a verbal agreement with Bayern Munich on personal terms. A 3-year contract is ready for him, but the clubs are still in negotiations based on a fee. Declan, for you, when you're looking at kind of the balancing act of Liverpool getting their money that they want to get from Mane versus keeping him for another year and letting him walk for free, where do you kind of lean on that sliding scale on how hard Liverpool should be with that 40 million pounds they're aiming for versus letting Mane get his chance to move on for a new challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question because, again, it's the balancing of the two. So do you keep him on? Will he be the same player he always is if he's thinking about moving to Bayern Munich? Will he continue to be, as good as he has been? I don't think he would be. I know it's happened with Coutinho in the past where, even though Barcelona seemed to, were going to sweep him off his feet in the summer, he moved on and we brought in Van Dijk and we kicked on. But I don't feel like we should keep hold of him. I feel like we should let him go. Try and get the money if possible, but I feel like we're probably going to reach a compromise about that 35-40 million range. In the end, I just feel like his time's over. Like he said, he can't do much more. He's won every trophy there is to win for Liverpool, so maybe that new challenge is probably the best for both parties.
Indeed. And Anthony, I know we've talked about this a lot, where you're a big Mane fan, you don't want him to see him go. But is Bayern the only destination for him out of Liverpool? Or could you see another side coming up if the negotiations continue to drag on and Bayern aren't willing to meet the price point Liverpool are at?
I mean, I don't really know who's in for him. I think PSG were after him and Atletico Madrid. I might be wrong there, but It'll be good to see him. Not good to see him leave. It'll be okay for him to leave because we've already got the replacement in Nunez. But normally we don't already have replacements lined up. That's the issue with some transfers. So with him leaving, obviously we're losing a world class player, but we're also bringing someone in. But it'll be sad. Obviously, he's been here from the beginning of the club era, sort of in his first full season, and he was the one who sort of changed our whole system. He's a fast winger, inverted, and it's going to be a sad day seeing the tweet from Liverpool. Sadio Mane has left the club.
That potential tweet there will be some feelings felt, some very sad ones. Tina, for you, I'll toss kind of both questions towards you in terms of Bayern Munich being the only destination in the negotiations with them. Where do you kind of see that sliding scale? And is it either Bayern or Liverpool as the only two destinations next year for Mane?
I think for his career-wise, I think he'd be foolish to go anywhere else. If he wants the money, sure, go to PSG, but I think he'd be wasted. He'd be wasted in League One. It's a dead league, a really pathetic league. He'd be wasted in the Serie A, it's a much slower league, and I don't think right now at 30 years old, when he's got at least another 3-4 years ahead of him at his top, at his peak, I don't think going there would be suited. Maybe Atletico potentially, but I think Bayern makes the most sense, guaranteed to be challenging for Champions Leagues every single season and League and Cups, which is what he's already done at Liverpool. As much as he'd get that in League One or in La Liga or where else he could go, Bayern Munich's just a different level for me to PSG or Atleti. What I'm going to be gutted to see him leave. I'm really going to be gutted to see him leave. He's had a very, very good season this year, 23 goals, 5 assists in 51 games in all competitions. But if we bought him in 2016 for 37, just over 37 million, and 270 games later, and we can possibly sell him for 40 million. After 6 years at the club, what he's done for the club on and off the pitch, to sell him for a profit at this stage, I think would be the right thing to do. He's won everything. I don't think you can blame him for wanting to leave in the slightest. He's done it all really in Liverpool share, and he's given it his all as well, which is the main. And he's not sitting there handing in transfer requests and constantly complaining, saying he wants to leave. He's like, I'd imagine if he leaves, fair enough. If he stays, I think he's the type of character to knuckle down, to work hard, and then to reassess things in January and think, right, am I going to get a move now, or am I waiting out my contract? I personally think he's the type of guy who would still knuckle down if he doesn't get his move. So it's going to be heartbreaking to see him leave. Of course it is. He's a phenomenal player, world class. But as the other guys have already mentioned, to a certain extent, we've already got his replacement in Nunez and Luis Diaz coming in January, and we already seem to be shored up attacking wise if he does leave. So I think really it's a win-win, irrespective of whether he stays or goes.
First of all, Nolan, thank you very much for the 10 euros. And this kind of leans into the next point of discussion. Reports from the Liverpool Echo that any other incomings this summer may be dependent on who leaves Anfield in the coming weeks. I'm unsure if that would include Mane as another outgoing, or if that's already kind of factored into the Nunez, I guess, thought process. Tino, you said you'd kind of be fine with the replacements are already here, so I won't go to you directly on this one. Anthony, I'll go to you first. Is that upsetting for you that any outgoings are going to have to be what fuels any more incomings, or do you kind of see the squad in a place where it doesn't need additions unless there are areas in the squad that open up that aren't currently open?
I think it's just the midfielder, honestly. If Minamino leaves, then yes, we need to replace him. If another midfielder leaves it, then we'll need another midfielder. Obviously, the depth there in terms of quality isn't good enough, but it is going to be upsetting not signing another midfielder. I'm not sure how we can watch this midfield get injured every week and think it's okay. It's the reason it cost us the league last season. I know we hit really 92 points, but that's the standards now. You need to be hitting those points to win a league, and the only way to do that is if we have a depth like Man City, where they could just quick swap players and not lose that much quality in the midfield. So whenever Thiago's missing, our next best options are like Chamberlain, Henderson. It's not good enough, and yeah, so I think we need another midfielder. But apart from that, I don't think there's too much of an issue with replacing players once they've already left the club. There's no need to sign a stupid amount of players.
We've seen the news from Fabrizio Romano that Minamino is reportedly definitely going to leave the club for around 17 million euros. Origi's already left. Mane's got a foot out the door. Questions about Oxlade-Chamberlain, Nico Williams, Nat Phillips, guys who the last two are there at least didn't play big roles. They're both on loan, but they would develop some revenue. Declan, if those guys all go, how many signings are you expecting based on that kind of sell to buy model? Are you going for one big one in Bellingham? Do you kind of anticipate a few smaller purchases? What are your expectations?
I feel like centre-back wise, we're okay. Like this season, Joe Gomez not got a sniff at all, centre-back really. And if you remember 2 years ago how good he was before he was injured, when he was playing in the title-winning season, he was immense. So I feel like centre-back's okay, because we've got Konate and Gomez for the future. I think Klopp now has to look at the next couple of years, and with, you know, Mo Salah turns 30 today. Most people are turning the wrong side of 30 in the next couple of years. So we need to look at making sure every position has, you know, someone under 25, 26 years old who's there, hungry and ready to win things with Liverpool. So I feel like potentially if Nico Williams leaves, which would be a shame because I feel like he's done really well for Fulham, bring another right back in. So that could be Ramsey, could be whoever, depending on the price. I feel like the midfield is the key one. Like Anthony said, it's the one where we really do need depth. I'd be ashamed to see Oxlade-Chamberlain leave and we have no replacement in midfield. I feel like we would really struggle next season then, you know, trying to compete on all fronts like we did this season. I feel like we get to May and we'd only have Tyler Morton left in midfield. It'd be a struggle. So hopefully we can get that midfielder and maybe one or two just to replace people going.
Yeah, and for you, Tino, you know, those names that go, will there be an even ratio of departures to arrivals, or will it almost be, what kind of ratio do you expect in terms of guys who leave the club versus we're signing? Because we've got Carvalho and Nunez done. Ramsey is close. What do you expect based on other potential outgoings?
I'd expect us to sell more players than we buy. It's something that we've done a lot recently. And it kind of makes sense from the business perspective, right? To only spend within your means and spend how much money you're getting in. It makes total sense, logically speaking, and if you're looking at this from a business. And I'm glad we've gone down this route rather than just go down the Manchester City route, because in 5, 10, 15 years' time, when they're thinking, oh, I've had my fun, I'm done with football, you're then in a really, really tough position, like Chelsea have been with Abramovich leaving. So I'm glad we've gone down the route of making sure we're financially stable as a club and as a business. That makes total sense. My heart tells me we need to bring players in. Like we need at least one, if not two midfielders, depending on outgoings. But I don't see it happening. I'd expect Ox to go. I'd expect all the names we've already mentioned: Minamino, Nat Phillips, Neco Williams, all of them to go. And I don't think we'd bring in another midfielder, at least another midfielder who's really going to challenge for a first team starting place as soon as they come in. I think the only way we bring in a midfielder is if it's a young lad, like with Carvalho coming in already, someone who's going to be in and around the first team squad, learning our way of football, the way we play, getting a couple of games in the academy, in the reserves, and then making the odd cameo appearance throughout the season. I'd expect Curtis Jones to really step up. I'd expect Carvalho, even though he's only just come in, I'd expect him to come in and make an instant impression. And I'd expect Harvey Elliott as well in that attacking creative midfield spot to really, really make a difference. I think it's the wrong move, if I'm being brutally honest. But then again, I'm not a professional football manager, and Jurgen Klopp is, so who am I to complain? But I think it's the wrong move if we don't bring another top-class central midfielder, because we can't keep relying on a 36-year-old James Milner, who has been phenomenal since he signed and has still got a hell of a lot to offer to the club and on the pitch and off it. But we can't keep relying on him and Jordan Henderson and Naby Keita, who is very inconsistent and has struggled with injuries, and Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's struggled with a lot of injuries, and then expect to be up there and guaranteed to be challenging, especially when Manchester City can just go, right, I'm going to spend 100 million on Haaland, I'm going to spend another 50 million on this player and another 50 million on that player. I don't think we can have that right to say we deserve to be at the top level if we keep stagnating every summer.
I want to get into like a more conceptual question before we kind of go into some more ins potentially. There's a lot of good comments that I want to bring up. So on the thumbnail are currently Erling Haaland and Darwin Nunez. And there will always be that discussion between them as we get in the month and a half of complete boredom before the season starts. I'm genuinely like dreading the kind of discussions that will happen on Twitter based on how degenerate they've already been, considering we had some international football, albeit some poor quality international football. We're gonna have no football for about a month and a half. So there will be some low intelligence takes that will be happening. A big discussion point though will be Erling Haaland and Darwin Nunez and their prices. So Nunez obviously had one of the most expensive transfers in English history based on the transfer fee. Erling Haaland's was around £50 million based on the release clause. Now that's if you believe that there wasn't an agent fee or anything like that. So I'm interested for you guys, when you kind of assess those transfers, are you ignoring the agent fees? Are you considering those kinds of things? Because there's always going to be the net spend discussion as we're Liverpool fans. So for you, Declan, those two forwards, how much of the price comparisons will you bring up or will you consider when you look at them and kind of like the underlying stuff that won't be seen based on just the raw transfer fee?
Yeah, that's a great point, because all week I've been seeing on Twitter and everything, the net spend coming up. We've been talking about Haaland being cheaper. Everyone's just inflating Nunez's price. Like one day 65, one day is 100, one day is 85. Well, I feel like you've just got to take it for what it is right now, what they've paid. And then obviously in years to come, say Nunez leaves in 7 years or something like that, you can say, oh, we've won the Champions League and he's done this, so we went up to 85 million. But hopefully that'll be a steal when we look back at it then. But it's hard, because when I look at Haaland, I'm like, anything under 150 million really for Haaland, you'd bite the hand off. You'd say, yeah, I'll take that. So it's hard for that debate to come up that we've paid more for Nunez than Haaland. But hopefully it won't matter when we come to this time next year.
And how much do we really think Haaland costed? Anthony, for you, how much do you think those agent fees actually added up to be? Because I don't know if we'll ever know for sure, because just no one's going to say. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody I just made 30 million euros because I'm just like a target out of nowhere. What if you had to, your little sleuth, your guess, what are you saying?
Probably around the 150 million mark, I assume. But that he's worth it. He's worth every penny, man. The guy's incredible. He's been performing at a top class level for the past 3 or 4 seasons. So you can't really blame them for spending the money if someone of that quality is available for that price to go for it. And we've done the same with Nunez. I know people can have a go at the price tag, but it's not like we're signing him for 1 season. This is sort of like an investment. You sign them for so you don't have to spend 40 million for the next 10 seasons. It's a good signing, and so is the Haaland one, obviously. But if we're going to do comparisons, I don't think we've got any right to talk about Haaland at the moment if we're comparing him to Darwin Nunez. But you never know. Next season, Haaland could get an injury and Nunez might clinch that golden boot.
There will be, even if neither of them win the actual golden boot, a guy like Salah or Kane or Ronaldo actually wins it, there will be the mini golden boot of which big money striker signing actually scored more goals. And so for Tino, for you, does Haaland arriving at the same time as Nunez, is that going to impact the expectations on him? Is that going to impact kind of his ability to bet in? Because there will always be those comparisons being drawn, regardless of, I agree Haaland is better at the moment, but there will always be almost an expectation for Nunez to kick his level up a notch.
I think it puts more pressure from the outside looking in, I think we put more pressure on Nunez, and Man City fans will put more pressure on Haaland to really step up and make sure they're the one at the top of those scoring sheets, and they're the one that's consistently performing week in, week out. That, without a shadow of a doubt, won't affect either of the players. Those guys are monsters. Those guys will be tuned in. They won't even be thinking about what the fans are thinking when they're playing. They're just going to be concentrating on their job and making sure they perform to the best that they can do. They're not going to be considering who's scored more and who's performing better. That pressure will come from us. The price tag doesn't. I'm not bothered. At the end of the day, it's not my money. And as much as I'll bring it up when I'm trying to make comparisons to say Liverpool are a better run club than any club in the world right now, because we run things financially very, very smart and very clever, and we make sure that we're not jeopardizing our long-term future for short-term gains, which I think other clubs, Manchester City, Chelsea, a lot of the big clubs, Barcelona have done it recently with a lot of the issues that they've had financially. But my money's on Darwin Nunez, without a shadow of a doubt, to be the guy that steps up. I have to back the Liverpool guy, being a Liverpool fan and being on the Liverpool transfer site. So I don't think I have a choice other than to back Darwin Nunez. But you look at what he's done in the Liga NOS in Portugal, 41 games in all competitions, 34 goals, 4 assists. Even if you can translate half of that to Liverpool next season in all competitions, that's still one hell of a season. And that's at the start of his Liverpool career. Imagine what he's going to be like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time with Jurgen Klopp and the team around him to really make sure he embeds well, steps up to the plate, and does what we expect him to do. So my money's on Darwin Nunez, but financially, transfer-wise, I'm not too fussed about who costs more, and all I care about is that my guy, Darwin Nunez, performs consistently. Even if he doesn't score a handful of goals and isn't the top scorer next season, as long as he's performed consistently, made sure he's putting those performances where we know that even though he hasn't scored or got an assist, he was instrumental to the win or instrumental to the manner in which we played. That's all I care about. Very fair.
I want to make a point that when I talked to Sam Lee, who's the athletics reporter for Manchester City, spoke to him back before we played them. I think it was October or November last year. Whenever we played the first fixture we had against Man City last year, not the Community Shield. And this was right after their match against PSG in the group stages, where Bernardo Silva and a few other players just missed gilt-edged chances. And I was saying, what if they had a number 9 like Haaland? Is this team just winning, contending better for the Premier League because they were struggling a bit at the time? Are they just a better side? And you're saying, it changes them so much. I'm not sure a number 9 is exactly what City would need. Haaland is the kind of guy that you can figure out a way to make it work. But City are going to have to change a lot about the way they play, because Haaland isn't going to be dropping into the midfield to be making passes, nor will Nunez. They're both going to be in and around the 18. So both sides are going to change a little bit. Let's talk about some potential additions. There's been a lot of really interesting ones tossed up. One that I think there hasn't been very, very many links of. I'm trying to find a comment. This one right here is not the first one, but Declan Rice would be very pricey. Declan, he's your namesake. Are you bringing him in?
I'd love him to play for Liverpool, but will never go for him. He's too expensive, and at the minute, West Ham it seems like the price just keeps inflating for him as more and more clubs get interested. So I just don't think we'll ever have a look at him, because he's just gonna, not balance the books at all. We'd have to sell the whole club.
Is Declan Rice feasible, or is it even a good signing for you, Anthony?
I personally wouldn't go for him. I just don't think he's more defensive midfielder, so I don't really think that's like a main priority. If we were to get a defensive midfielder, I'd say just spend like 30 mil on one end rather than the 150 mil West Ham probably asked for. But I don't know really. It's for me, it's just Bellingham or nothing. Like we just need that central midfielder. I think defensive midfielder wise, to go for someone like Sangare, he's got 25 million release clause or long goals figures, but yeah, not Rice for me.
I want to bring up this comment that I was going to mention. This has two guys with release clauses, Vitinha and Sangare. Vitinha is around 40 million pounds, or 35 million pounds, that range. Sangare is that 25 million pound figure. I'm not sure if it's a release clause or if it's just the valuation from PSV, but for Tino, for you, Bellingham or Vitinha and Sangare with some extra cash, which one are you going with?
I think they're all very different players.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll all offer different things to our squad. I think at this moment in time, we need Bellingham as more of a well-rounded central midfielder who can do a bit of both rather than one or the other in terms of defensively and pushing forward as well. And I think Bellingham is overall, you could offer me every central midfielder in the world right now, and I'd still choose Jude Bellingham. I feel like long term, he makes sense. Short term, he's going to step up and instantly make an impact. You've seen what he's done even in the short period of time for England and what he's done at Dortmund. He's really been on the ball. So I think tactically speaking and logistically, I think Jude Bellingham would be the better option than either of those two. I still just don't see it happening this summer.
Yeah. Allier, I don't know who this Jack Jude guy is. I'm joking. Jude or nothing for him. I agree personally that I think Jude Bellingham should be going all out for him. There's a handful by Sunset Boulevard mentioned here. Yuri Tielemans from Leicester, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio, Ibrahim Sangare from PSV, Fabio Vieira from Porto, Nicolo Barella from Inter Milan. That's an interesting one. Of that big list, how many are we interested in? Because obviously, these guys are Bellingham's also snuck in there. Jude, he's kind of sneaking him in there really small. Let's take Bellingham out of the discussion because I'm sure we would all say it is Bellingham. But of those guys, Tino, I'll toss it to you. How many of them are you interested in or taking?
The only one I really care about out of all of that list is Nicolo Barella. I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. I was trying to think of midfield options or instead of Jude Bellingham. He's just phenomenal for me. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's a truly phenomenal central midfielder. He's got offensively going forward. He's on the ball. He's got, I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head, but he's got a hell of a lot of assists in the Serie A. My only concern is players moving from the Serie A to the Premier League have often struggled. We've seen it over the years. Even just one recently, not a Liverpool example, but Paul Pogba went from Juventus, absolutely dominated in that Juventus side. And then as a result of mismanagement and him just underperforming, it just didn't work out. And my concern is if we go for a player like that, the same thing will happen. But Nicolo Barella is just, oh man, I absolutely adore him as a footballer. I think he's phenomenal.
Anthony, Declan, Barella, any of those other guys from that list that stood out that you'd be interested in?
We've been linked with Fabio Vieira as well. I've seen it. I've not really watched Portuguese players play, so I was on Vitinha as well. But this might be a bit of a weird take. I'd like to take Pogba,
I would.
think on a free. I don't see what's wrong with it, but we're never going to go for him. And obviously, he'll probably never join us, but it'll be funny to take him on a free. Another one, obviously, Gavi. I'll take him. I saw a tweet in 2030, so 8 years' time, he's still only going to be 25 years old, which is just crazy, man. I feel like getting too old, but his technical ability and like sort of, it don't sound weird, like maturity at such a young age is incredible. It's like him and Thiago, and even if we do miss out on Bellingham, but sign a midfielder like him and Singari or just another defensive midfielder, I'd probably take that option, to be honest, because I still think Keita, Thiago, Fabinho works really well. I know Keita can be questioned on consistency, but I think he's been performing really well this season, and if not our best midfielder, dare I say it, but it'll be good to see someone like Gavi at Liverpool.
I feel like every time I see Aouar's name, just another vowel is added to the middle. It's just Aouar. It's like a month's time. It's just going to be just the most gargantuan name ever.
There must be something wrong with him, surely, because for Hussein Aouar at Lyon, there must be something wrong with him attitude-wise or something else, because he has been on the market at Lyon for such a cheap price for God knows how long, and nobody just seems to be picking him up. Nobody's just going, right, I'll take him, because he's, again, another central midfielder who's got a hell of a lot in his locker.
I think it was like with Fakir, his brother-in-law wanted some extra money or something as part of the deal or something like that.
Yeah, attitude-wise, then trying to get everybody else involved in the deal. That makes more sense. But on the pitch, tactically, again, another example of a player who's just absolutely superb.
Yeah, no, he's 23. You know, I looked it up just to see. He's still remarkably young. I mean, he's linked to Arsenal every summer. So there's really interesting ones there. Yves Bissouma, nearing a £25 million move to Tottenham. So there's obviously the looming part that you can't talk about without mentioning, is that there's the ongoing investigation into, I forget if it's sexual assault or rape. There's some police investigation for Bissouma that is unresolved. So there's always that potential. But as much as you can put that to the side, Declan, Bissouma, would he be a good fit in the midfield? Should we be targeting him at that price point, excluding the moral gray area that I'm kind of like just tossing to the side?
Yeah, that grey area is obviously a big one. I don't think Klopp and the backroom staff are the type of people who would bring someone in with something like that over the head. I think they've got a no nonsense tolerance like for that sort of thing. They wouldn't accept them in terms of that. But I feel like he'd be a good fit. I was thinking about him when Wijnaldum left as potentially maybe a long-term replacement for Wijnaldum. But I don't know whether our midfield's actually evolving into something different now with the NFT, the Naby and the Thiago and Fabinho, and maybe looking at more Sangare to come in to replace Fabinho when he gets older. Gavi to replace Thiago and Bellingham to replace Keita would be, next generation from free. There we go. So I feel like he'd be a good fit, but maybe not for the new Liverpool that Klopp's trying to reinvent.
And I need to mention that Jen is a much better YouTuber than I am. Reminding people to like and subscribe to the channel, comment, get engaging, helps push the channel up. There has been some tremendous engagement with the channel in the last few weeks as the window's gotten into gear. So thank you all for tuning in. 111 people on right now. I want to toss something out there. I think Tino, you were there. Anthony, I think you might have been there when I mentioned Trent in the midfield. And I mean, I was around these. I'm going to go with another midfield revolutionary take. Completely abandon the 4-3-3. Only play two midfielders in a 4-2-3-1. So you don't need to sign a midfielder. You sign some more forwards, and then maybe potentially number 10. Anthony, for you, is that something that you would be interested in? You could see happening, and it would alleviate the concern of not being able to sign Bellingham if he's not an option this summer.
I mean, I'm not like completely against it, but I think what we've got going on is working anyway. It's not like we actually play 4-3-3. It's like we've got two defenders at times, really, isn't it? So the formation isn't really much of an issue. Trent sometimes moves into the midfield. We see the right midfielder moving into the box at times as well. So I don't think the formation is a big deal, but it'll be interesting to see if Klopp does change it.
And Tommy has a good point here that Harvey Elliott could do some biz in a 4-2-3-1. And maybe does that lean better for, you look at those young guys, Carvalho, Elliott, and Jones. as guys you wonder how much they can contribute this year. You don't want to necessarily have to lean on them too hard, but Declan, if you have to lean on those three guys, is it better to do so in a 4-2-3-1 as a 10s or maybe wingers, or in that 4-3-3 that we've kind of been accustomed to?
Yeah, I feel like either of those players, potentially even Firmino, because we're not talking about him enough, I don't think. In a 4-2-3-1, I think he'd be phenomenal in the 10 role. I feel like, having 4 players that could play that position, it helps, but I don't feel like we would move to a 4-2-3-1. I remember watching the start of last season when we had Harvey Elliott for the first couple of games, and I was wild. I was shocked at the start of the season seeing him on the team sheet, and then to watch him play, he was a breath of fresh air in the midfield for Liverpool, because I've not seen that for at least a good 5-10 years, where we've had, like Coutinho playing in that sort of role. So I feel like giving Elliott, Carvalho and Jones more of a chance helps out in the long term, because it means we won't have to potentially look at spending 80 million on a player. We can just use one of them, and I feel like that's a really exciting prospect going into next season as well.
And I'm also interested, if we go with my theory of if you can't get Bellingham, sign some forwards, change the system up a little bit, and when you can play Keita and Thiago with Fabinho in a midfield 3, you play it like that. But when you don't, you play a 4-2-3-1. For you, Tino, are there any forwards that you're liking? And in the comments, let us know if there's any forwards you have some interest in us signing potentially. For you, Tino, I'll give you the first platform. Is there a guy out there that you are a fan of that could be a good option to sign as an additional forward, as a backup, to push the front 3, front 4? What are you looking at?
Oh, that's tough. If we're going to sign any forward, if you'd have asked me before Darwin Nunez came in, I'd have told you Harry Kane, even though it's a very unrealistic signing. Now you've asked me, now he's technically coming in. It's got to be, who's the Brazilian lad from Ajax? That guy, Anthony. It's good time. Yeah, he looks like a very bright prospect. If I'm trying to go someone very left wing, very completely out there, then I'm looking at someone like Keane Lewis-Potter at Hull City. He's done, as much as he's only still very, very young, still developing, learning his trade in the Championship. He's still long-term, got a very bright future. If you wanted someone else to come in to help you defensively as well as going forward, we've been linked with Jared Bowen, who really puts the work in. Pedro Neto of Wolves, again, another guy who works absolutely phenomenally on the wings defensively as well. But I'm probably leaning towards either Pedro Neto or Anthony, just because United want Anthony, and for us to steal another player from them would just be so sweet.
I actually want to mention, that reminds me, I wanted to bring up this comment. I don't think I'll be able to find it, but someone mentioned it, and I totally agree with it. Like, I don't know why we haven't thought about this, but Frankie de Jong, he clearly doesn't want to go to Manchester United because they're not in the Champions League. Yes, his old boy is there in terms of Erik ten Hag, but I don't know. I think he'd be interesting for me, because I think he could do a job as an 8. Maybe the right-handed side 8. It might be a little too progressive for him, like where he'd be a bit more attacking than you might want him to be. He could be a defensive mid. He could play in a pivot. 70 million pounds. It'd be very pricey, and it's not Jude Bellingham. But, I mean, Declan, just purely for the screwing Manchester United fans over again, it's got to be worth it, right?
It would be good to do that. I'd love to see the look on some of the people's faces, but I don't know. There's something off about him, and about Anthony as well. As Tina's just mentioned, I don't feel like there's certain players I watch, like Jared Bowen. I feel he could be a Liverpool player. He's a Klopp player. Even with Nunez, in a way, you feel like he could be a Klopp player when he come in. I just don't feel like he is that type of guy, to be honest. There's something wrong with him. He's a great player, but I just don't think he's for us.
I don't disagree. I think he would be very much a big change elsewhere. Anthony, I'll pose it for you. Is there a guy that you have your eye on? Maybe that's not been linked, that has been linked in terms of forwards or midfielders that you would be interested in Liverpool signing?
Yeah. And Kunku, I think, is probably the obvious one if we were to move to a 4-2-3-1. He could play all four positions up front in the 10 role and left or right wing. But yes, with Anthony, it's like I think if we were to sign another forward, we kind of need someone who doesn't offer something that we don't already have. And is anything Anthony can do that Salah can't? Probably not. Obviously, that's probably a bit of an ask, to be fair. He's been our top scorer for the past 5 seasons. But this might be a bit of a silly shot as well. But I'd probably take Suarez on a free as well. I'm not going to lie. I think just why not bring him back to Anfield and hopefully can win that Premier League title. He was robbed off back in 2014.
And you mentioned the Salah on the right, what he can offer. Does signing a backup for him right now make sense as a preemptive replacement should he leave in 12 months?
I don't think we need a backup for Salah. I'm not going to lie. I think our current forward depth is fine, even if Mane goes. But if Minamino goes, then I think we need a backup because obviously we still got Cade Gordon coming from the academy. I'm not saying he should be a direct replacement for Salah, but we've seen Diaz playing that right this season. Harvey Elliott can play on the right as well, so I don't think it should be too much of an issue.
There's a lot of interesting things, and this one coming from Christian Eriksen. Rumors of him going to United. I think he'd be interesting. Tino, you gave that little like, ooh. Do you think he can be a
guy? Yes and no. I don't think he's the right fit stylistically for us, unless we do change to that 4-2-3-1 with the double pivot. He's certainly a very, very talented lad. But at 30 years old, I'm sat there thinking we probably should go for someone slightly younger, because even if he has 3 to 5 years left in the top level, which is pushing it, I still think someone younger, someone looking more long term would fit in more with what Jurgen likes to do and what FSG have really allowed Klopp to buy into. So yeah, I think if you're going to go for someone of that style, you have to go for someone younger rather than Christian Eriksen.
Very interesting few weeks coming up. We'll give some closing thoughts before we get out of here and some predictions on what will happen. Anthony, I'll give you the baton first. What do you expect to happen for the rest of the summer? And what do you... Is Anthony frozen? I can't tell if he's frozen. He's frozen. All right, we'll go to Anthony last. We'll give him a chance to get unfrozen. Declan, you get the baton first. How many signings do you expect? And where do they come?
It's so hard to predict with Liverpool. I just don't feel like you can put a finger on where people are going to end up. I feel like we're going to end up with more outgoings than ingoings. Like we said before, I feel like the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain, Nico Williams, they're gone. In my mind, I feel like Ramsey's definitely coming, in my opinion, and then hopefully that can be followed up with a Jude Bellingham, but I doubt that highly. I feel like we're going to bring one more in and maybe another one that we don't see coming towards the end of the window if more and more people decide that it's time for them to leave Anfield.
It was really weird. You guys, Tino and Anthony both kind of dipped and then went down to just me and Declan for a second there. Anthony, I was going to toss it to you before I think you froze, but in terms of predicted signings, how many do you expect to come in and where are they coming in for the rest of the window, if you had to put a guess on it?
Probably one more. I imagine in the midfield. If we were going to go for too many at the beginning, I don't see a reason why we won't go for another midfielder. But like you said earlier in the video, if we do sell more players, then we probably do need to sign some more. But can't really imagine us selling quite a lot of the players. So maybe 1 or 2 signings.
Tino, for you, signings you expect to see?
Probably one, the fullback from Aberdeen. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't see us signing another player, even with outgoings. I'm just a very pessimistic person, if you haven't figured it out by now. I really don't see us signing another player, another midfielder particularly, which is obviously we've talked about at length, not just today, but on other streams and such. that's the key area that every Liverpool fan is looking at right now and thinking, we really need to bring someone in. But if I'm being honest, I don't see it happening. I see Jurgen Klopp really trusting the young lads, really pushing this challenge out to Curtis, to Cavalier, who's coming in, to Harvey Elliott, and saying, this is your chance to step up. This is your chance to really prove that long term you should be in my starting 11 week in, week out.
And that's what I want us to end on, though, is if Tino's window prediction comes true, it's just Ramsey, Carvalho. I say just, but it's Ramsey, Carvalho, Nunez. Out of 10.
Not.
Out of 10, rate that window, Tino.
8, which is quite. Usually, I'd have gone a lot worse, but the fact that we've gone absolutely all out for Nunez and made sure we've got someone in before letting Sadio Mane go, and are still sticking to our guns in relation to price tag, has really pushed it up from that 7.5 to an 8 because of how we've stuck to our guns and made sure that we're not leaving ourselves in a bad position and in a weakened position before bringing players in, which is not something we usually do. So I'd have to probably say an 8.
Declan, for you, just the 3 signings out of 10, and we'll assume that Mane, the rumored exits are the ones who go. No one surprising leaves as well. Where do you rate that window out of 10?
It's hard because of the midfield. If Ox leaves, I feel like if it stays as Ox leaves and all the others leave, I'd give it 6.5, 7, because we haven't replaced that hole in the midfield that we're going to leave for the whole season ahead. You know, it could be 60 games again and we might struggle. But if we have it's hard because as it is now, I'm happy. I'm at an 8. But if more go out and come in, maybe I'll start to get a bit nervous when it comes August and the Premier League kicks off.
Anthony, for you, where would you rate that potential transfer window?
I'm a bit on the sort of pessimistic end as well. I think probably 5.5, 6. The midfield was probably the biggest issue coming into this going into the next season. And if we don't address that, then a bit of a failure off the window, to be honest. The only reason we're going to sign Nunez is because we're selling Mane. So I think we need to address the midfield for it to be high.
It's typically like a. Sorry, Tino, go ahead.
So I thought I was pessimistic.
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Wow, like 5.5, 6 as a window given. I get the point in relation to the midfield. Completely understand the point in relation to the midfield, and I completely agree with you both. We need to bring someone in. We're leaving ourselves short if we let Ox go, if we let all the other players in and around the squad go and don't bring in quality, good enough backup. But this, for me, I still stick to the point of the young lads. We got 3 young lads coming who are still young enough to mould into whatever player you want to mould them into. And you can, Jurgen is that type of guy to sit there and go, here's your opportunity. I'm giving it to you on a silver platter. You have to prove it to me now, and show your worth. And I think for those lads and for Jurgen, this would be the perfect season to do so. And then if they do step up to the plate, brilliant. If they don't, you can still spend 60, 70, 80 million on Barella or Jude Bellingham or whoever the hell else you want to bring in. Especially with next season with potentially James Milner scooting out the door, given he's about 400 years old right now. So this for me is the season where these young lads really make that step up, because admittedly our midfield isn't the most well-rounded and isn't the most good. If that's it's not great. It's not a great midfield other than Thiago and Fabinho for me. But to bring in these young lads, to embed them into the squad whilst also having a big transition up front is a perfect opportunity and a perfect chance to do that.
I would be failing my job as a PR head for the transfers. We're not the LFC develop the youth room. We're the LFC transfer room. I think we could do with 3 more signings on top of the 3 that's already been mentioned. So I would give it a 5 out of 10 window. I'm very, very harsh probably because I still think we'd be very competitive for trophies. But I just think, and I agree with this comment from Jen, the midfield just needs strengthening. And I think it's hard on Jones, on Elliott, on Carvalho if you're thrusting too much onto them too soon. And especially with Milner and Henderson, Oxlade and Thiago, all probably, I think people underestimate how soon Thiago is going to be phased out. I think 2 to 3 years for all those guys. And Jones, Elliott don't cover all those guys. So, but it is very typical for Liverpool fans to get one of the biggest signings in club history, the biggest signing in club history a day ago, and we're already saying the window is going to be a 5 out of 10. So there is still a lot to come in the ensuing weeks. We'll be live again tomorrow as well as on Friday. Friday is going to be a very special 5,000 subscriber quiz. So stay tuned for that. That'll be 7:30 p.m. UK time as always. But that does it for today's Transfer Central stream. I've been Jack, joined by Tino, Declan, and Anthony. Make sure to check all of our social medias out here. You can follow the LFC Transfer Room on all social medias as well. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. You like this video, you comment. Let us know in the comments of any video what kind of videos you want to see, what kind of streams, and we'll make it happen. But until next